as I closed my door, and I was deeply upset, I got on my knees and I said the Lord's Prayer. And he said, that's all you need to do. He said, say the Lord's Prayer. He says, and ask Jesus Christ into your life. He says, and apologize for everything you've ever said or done. He will accept you. But he says, you must, more than anything else, say it from here. He says, because if you do not say it from here, it does not work. And as soon as I'd said the Lord's Prayer, there was a presence in that room. I was frightened.
Prove to me that you are alive.
Welcome everybody to Prove to Me That You're Alive, the only lightcast in the world that has been the most shadow banned, and I won't go into a further introduction in that. Today's episode, and sorry, I am your host NazareN. I always fail to say that because it's all about the guest today. But today's episode was brought to you by David Woroniuk, my brother, and the wonderful people that are his family. And I just want to say thank you to David. He's the co-host and other creator of the podcast, so thank you so much. So today I would like to introduce today's guest by saying this, that, well, you know, I consider that everyone is special, right? To me, every person is special. Every person has their own path. But a lot of people decide, maybe, you know, they're born into a life where it's not so exciting, let's say. It's more normal, and that's fine. It's absolutely fine to go to work and be a part of society that way. We bow down to these people. We need the mechanics, we need the plumbers, we need the everybody. And then sometimes we have these people that choose an extraordinary path. And these are the kind of people that we have been blessed enough to meet in life. I've been blessed enough to meet in life. And today's man, half amazing, is no exception, because I heard a lot about this guy from my brother. And when my brother says something, I have to listen. So without further ado, and I'll let this magical being introduce himself. So without further ado, today we have Michael, the medium, the magician, a oracle, and again, half man, half amazing. I'm going to give him a round of applause. How are you, sir?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you very much for having me. And thank you, David, for putting me on to you, or vice versa.
Yeah, thank you, David. You know, when we go through certain things in life, and I know since early childhood, you know, we all go through different things, but me going through all these things, I realized that I really want to collect good people in life rather than collect money or collect this. I would like to collect good people, meaning that I really appreciate, you know, the people that come into my life. So I want to tell you thank you, and I know that out of this will grow, you know, a friendship. So and you've been so kind to me. I've been pushing things back, and you've been so kind to me. So listen, I'm going to shut up, and I would like to ask you, you know, if you could please, like, sometimes this is cliche, but we like to hear the story that comes from your own words. Like, where are you from? What was your childhood like? How did you first start noticing that, hey, maybe, you know, I'm not the same as everyone else? You know, you can take as long as you like, as short, whatever it is. Please tell us about yourself, because it's super interesting.
Okie dokies. Right, basically, I was born in Singapore. My dad was on Royal Navy submarine convoys, and we moved about a lot, and we settled eventually in Manchester. Prior to that, my mum and dad had divorced, and my dad did something to me when I was 9, which I never found out what he did. I was whisked away to my grandparents. And then when I got back home, my mum and my two brothers had left. So consequently, I ended up with a stepmother who was, how can I put this, rather unsavoury, for want of a better word. From the ages of 9 to 16, I was subsequently beaten because I was there. I was constant reminder to her of my mum. And it transpired that sort of like, because the way she was, I wasn't allowed to watch TV or anything like that. So they decided in their wisdom to put a TV in a bedroom.
Oh, wow.
So when I was 14, I put the TV on and it went all kind of snowy. So we're going back where you had bulbs in the back of TVs. So you're going back a very long while. And because it was fuzzy, I decided to take the back off and decided to put my hand around the back of the TV and look round the front to see if I was tuning it. Where then my eyes went funny, my hand dropped into the back of the television. The TV then just exploded. And
so wait, were you? I'm so sorry. Were you electroshocked? Is that what happened?
Yeah, I was electrocuted. And
keep going.
And from what that happened was, I flew across the bedroom. I hit the far wall and bounced off that wall, and then hit the floor. The noise was that loud. My dad got upstairs to resuscitate me. I was kind of purple when he got to me. And the next thing I knew, I woke up in hospital. But before I ended up getting to the hospital, I went down the tunnel where there was a light at the end. I kind of understand that everybody has NDEs, and everybody's is different. And for me, I went down this tunnel and I got to the end, and the light, as I stepped through it, I was prevented to go any further, but I got a glimpse of the spirit world. Now, the spirit world is such a beautiful place. It's tranquil, the peace. You won't find it this side of life. Very rare you will find it this side of life. The colours are so vibrant and everything else, and it was just sort of like something I took away with me. So that experience, when I woke up, was just kind of laying there. It was latent. I didn't really pick anything up until much later.
So I just wanted to, sorry for interrupting you. I just wanted to know, before this, so you're 14 years old, right? So before this, do you remember, can you recall, like, did you have any other experience before this near-death experience? Any spiritual
No,
experience?
It was kind of, because my life at the time between the ages of 9 and 16 was kind of ducking and diving, because there wasn't a day went by where my stepmother systematically set about me one way or another. If somebody found out, one of my friends found out, because my stepmother had hammered me that much, my spine was black. And my friend,
sorry to hear that. I'm sorry to hear that.
That's fine, buddy. My friend's mother worked for social services, and of course they got in touch and sent somebody around. So when they sent somebody around and she got questioned, I got another hammer in as well for allowing people to see my back.
So keep going. So you're in the hospital. I'm so sorry because I interrupted you. So you're in the hospital, and so when you wake up, did you realize that you had this tremendous spiritual experience?
I'd felt something, because I was, as quick as I left my body, it was just as quick coming back into it, which just seemed kind of, it seemed like ages, but kind of seemed only like 5 minutes, if you will. It was just kind of one of those experiences where you just think to yourself, did that really happen or didn't it? So it was just kind of trying to gather my thoughts at the time, because the electrocution did quite a bit to me, and I was still a bit groggy. I did wake up with this big bunch of keys on my chest. So that's what brought me round. But it's an experience of seeing the spirit world that I would never, ever forget. So it just kind of set me up to what was due to happen later on. Well, when I was 17, I'd moved from my dad's house up to where my mum was. And she was the one that introduced me to the spiritual side of life, albeit in the wrong direction. I started to get interested in it because I was just buying this magazine called Prediction that had all different people in it that were doing clairvoyance and spells and readings and stuff like that. And it took me by surprise how much I was interested in it. And I thought to myself, well, flicking through these books at a time, I basically started to get more deeper into it. So I started to buy spell books, being kind of moving up a couple of years, 17, 18, and started delving into black magic, voodoo, witchcraft. I did make a homemade Ouija board. It's just kind of everything that was dark, to be fair. And when I did the Ouija board, which on hindsight at the time was fantastic, you just think, oh, this is really, really good.
Right.
And for the 5 years after, sort of like realizing things were starting to go awry with this Ouija board. There were things going.
I'm so sorry. Can you share, because everyone has different experiences with the Ouija board, but I had my own experience at 16 and I stopped using it. But so what were some of the early experiences in the Ouija board? Were you actually able to, communicate? What started coming through? Like, what were some of the dark stuff that was happening?
It was just kind of when you set up the board and everything, and we were just sort of like, I was sat there with my mum doing this board, and we had a glass and it was moving around gently, and then the more we used it, the more the glass got more and more violent. It was tipping itself over. There were things in the house, kind of doors slamming and other bits and bobs that were happening like that. So when I started first doing the Ouija board, for me, there was no harm. I didn't understand fully what a Ouija board would do, but then once I stopped using it, everything in my life for the next 5 years just went downhill. So now, many moons later, when I'm cleansing, I understand what a Ouija board does and how it works, and it's not what people think it does. And people have this misconception that you are talking to family members. You're not. You're talking to a demon. And while you have that connection with that demon, they're allowing others to come through, and they won't necessarily attach themselves to you that's doing the board. They will attach themselves to somebody who is a lot weaker in mind, in spirit. So back then, there was a lot of things going on. There were brushes going missing. We had an old kettle that was on an old gas stove, and it was pure black with it being burned. We then my mum went in to make a cup of tea, and she said, "Oh, thank you." And I went, "For what?" And she brought the kettle in, and the kettle was spotless. It was little things like that was happening. Brushes going missing, knives and forks going missing. Doors would open at will when they wanted to. There were thumps during the night. There were door slamming at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning when there was only 2 of us in the house. So it had a detriment effect on us when we started, or when I started using them. And then we sort of like, I decided to get rid of it, break it up and throw it away. And from then, I just thought to myself, the dark side is really good to get into. And you just think it's just an amazing thing to do. You know, your black magic, voodoo, witchcraft, different spell books bring different things. For me, there was one spell I used, and it worked that well. It continued to work because I hadn't retrieved that spell to burn it to break the cycle. So from that early age, I got mixed in with that, and then there were people on the street who I knew who were into dark magic and voodoo as well. And one particular day, I'd come home from work, and I'd gone upstairs to get changed, and I had an old dressing table style with a mirror, and I got in, went upstairs into my bedroom, and I still remember it to this day. There was writing on the mirror in lipstick that says, "We want you. You will be head of our group, and we are watching." And it was just I looked at that and I went, okay. And it was not knowing anything about protection or anything like that. You just, if you go in blind like that, you just leave yourself so wide open to things happening and people having to go at you.
Yeah, can I ask you? I just have to say, this is, you know, tremendous. This is one of these like really tremendous, you know, spiritual experience. So I wanted to ask you, so before the age of, let's say, before your teen years, before your adulthood really, and before you had this, you know, electrocution experience and near death experience, was there any religion present in your life, in your family? Like were they Catholic or Christian or Muslim or whatever? Was there any talk of God or anything like that?
No, none whatsoever. I think the closest that I ever got to something like that was when we used to, I think, Easter weekend, when my dad had to go or take us all to this, I don't know, this kind of fair that they had, and at Whitson. So for me, I didn't know anything about religion. I didn't know anything about God, Jesus, or anybody like that, or any other religion, come to think of it. For me, back in those days, I was just living my life how I wanted to live it, you know, ducking and diving from the stepmother. And my dad wasn't any use anyway, because he, as far as I could see, he didn't have a backbone to stand up to her. So I was there kind of surviving on my own, which was an experience, to be fair.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, do you think that that those years from 9 to 16, do you think that this was like a major, you know, step in your journey in life, like that was necessary?
Yeah, very much so. For me, when I cast my mind back, and I'd actually left my dad's, because of what she did over a period of time and got away with, and was allowed to get away with. I just look back on it now, and to be fair, when I was 16, I was angry. I was fuming that I had my childhood like that destroyed by two people that were supposed to have protected me and watched over me and stuff like that. So for me, I was angry. I wanted to go back and kill my stepmother. I was enraged like that. I mean, I had everything planned and what have you, and then all of a sudden my life started to change, so it went into the background.
Yeah, I don't blame you, you know. And you know, I think that these episodes that you're explaining of anger, because I had the same thing. I had the same thing towards my father in my teen years, and I think it's because we experience these extremes, you know, at an early age
Sure.
is what helps
Yeah.
us later on figure out, you know, that maybe my nature is not like this or like that.
Sure. Yeah.
So yeah, again, like I'm sorry you went through that, but then again, you know, this is a huge part of your journey. It made you who you are today. So this is what I want to know, right? Like, and I'm sorry because I like these little details. You know, I think they're so
Sure.
important to document as part of your journey. So when you get to post 16 years old, you get to your mom's. Are you like, is your mom right away like starting to introduce you, because you said she kind of showed me some things that were not the right things, but so what was she introducing you to? And do you think that your mother is also some sort of a spiritual guide for you in this life, or no?
Um, for me, she's kind of, I think how it went about, because she used to buy certain magazines, women's magazines, sort of like People's Friend and such magazines like that. And then I just happened to see this prediction magazine, which I sat and took home. My mum said, "Oh yeah," she says that she used to read that. So then I started buying it, and then I started getting more interested in it because of the adverts at the back. I guess back then it's a kind of, they put in, or guide, you know, your guides are putting stuff in the way very lightly to get you to follow certain things because your path is already made for you to walk down. It's just as and when certain things happen in life that you pick the ball up and start running with it. But at 16, still wet behind the ears and green, you kind of go into what works. Basically, for me it did, and the dark side seemed to work for me, so that's what I went to.
So okay, so you're like 17, 18, you're picking up some books. Can you remember what kind of books, like were you picking up, like Wicca books, or like, because you said, you know, like, so black magic, voodoo, like what kind of books? And what is your feeling at this moment? Like, is your anger kind of subsiding because you're realizing that you're taking more control, or is the anger unknowingly growing? Like, what was that period of your time from like 18 to your, you know, early 20s when you had the lipstick experience? And we're gonna go back to that. Like, yeah. So what were some of the books, and like and how were you feeling at this time?
Um, for me, it was like, thinking back now, I felt like a bit of a hitman because I sort of like found something that was working for me, and I really wanted. I had sort of like a list of people I wanted to get back because I was so angry at the people that hadn't protected me. So now I had a means to revenge what they didn't do, what they should have done, and what I can do. But it got to a stage where I'm just thinking, are these people really worth it? And taking up so much of my time, my energy, for me to return something that really wouldn't serve me any good. It'd give me a lot of satisfaction, but it really wouldn't serve me any good. So you kind of get guided away from that. And then because things were tight with my mum and money was tight and everything else, it was basically for money, all these spell books. I used to get all my books from a company called Finbar in Kent, which is now obsolete. That is doesn't produce books anymore.
Can you like this is super interesting, right? Can you remember the first time you tried a spell, and how do you know if, because there are a lot of spells online and everything like that,
Sure.
like, you know, so, but obviously at that time there was no internet, but like, what was your first spell and did it work?
Yes, it did. I tried a few little spells, which you kind of, I was learning that when you do spells, it's all to do with your mind. You've got to have a certain positive set of mindset for these things to work. and we were having trouble with one of next door neighbours, and I'd bought, which I've still got actually, a spell book of the Javanese, and this particular spell, you wrote on a piece of cloth, yellow cloth, and you had to speak the words. Now, bearing in mind it's a Javanese book, so I haven't got a clue how to spell or how to speak Javanese. So I wrote this spell on. You have to place it in somebody's garden underneath their bedroom window, because what happens then is the entities that you've raised start scratching at their bedroom window.
Oh, wow.
And excuse me, this particular spell started to cause arguments within next door's household. So for everything that they'd done to me and my mum was now being paid back in, tenfold in their lives. So much so they argued and fought that much that it split the whole family up, and they moved out. So we were happy at that, and logic should have told me back then that I should have re-entered their garden to dig the spell up, to burn it, to break it, but I didn't. I left it. And somebody else bought the house, they moved in. Again, they started fighting, they up and left.
Wow.
And then somebody else moved in, and again, they started fighting. But by then, it had come to the stage where I was ready to fly the nest of my mum's anyway. So it's probably still buried there if nobody's, dug it up since.
That's crazy. But so when you're in the process of making this spell, do you know that you will have to repay for this, or like how does that work? Because so basically you said that a harm was done to you, so now you're repaying, right? Doing harm. So does that balance itself out, or is there still a debt that you will own after doing this spell?
Yeah, to a certain degree. It's often said that when you're doing spells, you do harm to none. It's like an unwritten spiritual law. You just don't harm other people. Spells are kind of, the spell I did wasn't there to actually harm anybody. It was there to cause conflict, which is, for me is a different thing. If I was doing it to harm somebody, then yeah, I mean, there's no need. It doesn't matter what people do to you. Two wrongs don't make a right, if you will. And so for me at the time, I was happy. We'd got our justice because of the things they'd done, things they'd said, and harassment and everything else. So for me, it worked, and I was quite happy that it worked, and it just spurred me on to go and find something else, because once you get a taste for it, you need feeding. You want more. It's like a vampire wanting blood, if you will. It's just kind of, it gives you a thirst. It gives you something that's indescribable that you think, right, this has worked. Right, I've got this. Then I'm going to have a look at this to see if this works. If not, I'll come back to this, but I want to expand on this that I've already done. So you kind of get led down different paths. And I think, by your own choice at the end of the day, nobody makes you do these things. It's what you do.
Right. Well, yeah, it's also, it looks like this is all a part of your journey, like this was, like you said, this was already on your path. So
yeah,
this is what I want to know. Like let's say you do a spell, right? And everything goes well, and it's a darker natured, let's say, spell, right? And like your spell goes well, everything like that. Is it automatic that the person you're doing a spell, or the people that you're doing a spell on, is it automatic that that spell will work? Or if those people are like, maybe spiritually stronger, or maybe this is not on their karmic path, that it won't work? Or does it always work if the spell is done right?
I think see, back then for me, the people I was actually dealing with wouldn't have had an idea of anything of spiritual nature. So it makes it a lot easier when people don't understand it, don't get it, don't want to interfere with it, and don't want any knowledge of it. It makes it easier because it makes them more open. Whereas somebody who is clued up on that kind of thing will maybe have protection in place, or, you know, be totally protected. They will have guides around them that won't allow certain things or certain people to do things to them. But then on the flip side of the coin, they won't always interfere. So it's like a catch-22. Yes, they do work, but if something is due to fail spell-wise, then it will fail, because we have all guardian angels and guides at the side of us. So some things they allow, other things they won't, because each experience, you take something from that. You take some kind of knowledge from that to understand why you've done what you've done and why you need to do that to somebody else. So you damage, in some respects, you damage your own growth.
Right.
So it's
Right.
kind of allowing yourself to experience something, but also with it not maybe working.
Yeah. So you're a young man, you know, with these spells and, you know, getting introduced. Well, you kind of, not that you stumbled on it, it kind of, the door of your spiritual journey hit you in the
Sure.
face, really. But so you're a young man, you're realizing that, hey, these spells are working. You have this hit list. Have you tried at that time to do a spell on that stepmother that made you suffer that way?
Um, no, because I think after I'd left, and then I'd lived a few more years, I kind of looked back, and I'd looked at my dad and my stepmother, and I looked at them and I thought to myself, for everything that you have done to me, what you didn't protect me, the different ways my stepmother humiliated me, not just on my own, but in front of my friends as well. I looked at the whole picture, and I just looked at it and I thought, do you know what? I'm not going to be like you. I am not like you, and I will never be like you. And that gave me a solid platform to work from. So my dad, with him being in the Navy, he actually brought the test papers home for me to get in the Navy, to do the test before I actually went for the actual test to go in the Navy. And I flunked it. And I didn't want to go in the Navy. That wasn't me. That wasn't for me. And he's just kind of hit the roof, because that was his way of moving me out the way so he didn't have to deal with it. So, as I say, as far as the hit list, it kind of shrunk, if you will, because it didn't matter. It had gone. And to revisit something, to hash up old feelings and angers and anxieties, it just didn't have a place, not where I was at that moment in time. So to look back and, in some respects, in a weird way, is thank them for what they did, because they taught me not to be like them. So, you know, it was a learning experience, and as I say, my hit list just shrank. It just,
Yeah.
you know, went to nothing.
Yeah, it loses sense. I think that that's what happens when you actually start feeling like I'm getting power back in my own life, that now I can control my own life. The people that, you know, hurt you kind of start going away, because you realize that now they don't have that power over you. You know, so like, you know, this is so interesting. So, and I just want to still stay on that period where, you know, you're dabbling with the dark side.
Sure.
So you have stuff, you know, moving around the house, you know, like brushes are kind of disappearing, you know, and noises in the middle of the night. Do you remember, maybe at that period where you were dabbling with the dark side, do you remember the craziest spell that you did, meaning like the most wow spell, and did it work?
I think I think the weirdest one we did, or the one I did, we had to get a beef heart. And this, I think this was to do with voodoo, to be fair. And there was a family down the road who were dabbling in voodoo and doing things to us in the house. So to get this beef heart, and we had a coal fire, so we had to stuff this beef heart with so much different stuff, and then put it on the fire and burn it. And as much coal as everything that we were putting on, this heart would just not burn. So we're after taking it off and putting more stuff in. I even put a bit of petrol in, and hopefully that, and it just as we put it on the fire, it just went woof like that, and then it started to burn and fizzle, and the black stuff that came out of it was no odds to no one. And while we were doing that, my mum says, "Oh, I've got this coat that I don't want will burn this as well." So as we were cutting this coat up and putting it on, my mum threw a piece of this coat on, and I can still see it today. I wish back then we'd had these kind of phones to take a picture, but there was this shape of a bat that was in the middle of this fire that was on this beef heart, and I was just sort of like, I'm there going, wow. But the thing was, it was supposed to stop these people doing voodoo spells on us, and it was kind of like supposed to work as a shield. Did it work? Not on your Nelly, did it work? I think at the end of the day, you kind of focus so much on what you would want from that spell rather than concentrating on the whole thing itself to make it work. And I think back then, because my mind was kind of like a grasshopper, it was all over the place, it wouldn't actually settle. So you just kind of think to yourself, I wish that had worked, because that would have been like a powder keg going off. It was just unreal.
So there's a lot of like misunderstanding and a lot of misconceptions, you know, about the dark side of magic. So if you can clear the air for people when you are actually performing a spell, and do you know who are you making a deal with, or are you making a deal with anybody? Are you making a deal with yourself? Like can you break that, you know, misconception maybe, or
Sure.
or maybe acknowledge it? Because a lot of people think that, you know, all of a sudden this contract pops out, you have to cut your fingers, sign the thing with your finger. Like who, like, how does that work? Who are you making a deal with?
Right. I think it would depend on what sort of spell book you're actually using. The spell books that I was using, it wasn't kind of like, it wouldn't make a contract or anything with I don't know, just say the devil, for instance, or one of his minions, or anything else. I think you have specific books for that kind of thing. But if you're just doing an ordinary spell, then it's just like going out into the universe. Say, like I do, even today, I do a money spell with candles. It's just a whole host of words. It's not dedicated to anybody. It's not summoning anybody. Those kind of books you need to summon something. There are different deities that would hear what you're doing. Your guides know what you're doing. So it's just a case of, when people do spells, it depends what book you've got. I've got 4 or 5 different spell books, and yes, there are spells in there where you call on somebody to appear in your presence for you to tell them what to do, to dismiss them, to go away, to do what you want. But as a normal spell, you would have different words and things like that. So it's a bit set out like a poetry, if you will. It's all done in sentences and in verses. And if there's names there to be called upon, those names will be in the spell. But if not, then no, there isn't. There's no.
So yeah, so a lot of the understanding that we got, well, especially in the West, is like this, Eurocentric, almost, Eurocentric Christian view of how the dark side looks. Like, we think of typical things like, the devil and demons, and
Sure.
like, things like that. So while you were dabbling in the dark side, what did you figure out? Like, what does the other side look like? Like, is there a devil? Are there demons? Were you connecting with maybe the natural forces, nature, wind, rain? Are you connecting with ancestors? And if so, what are the ancestors like? Like, how does that all look?
Back then,
so you understand what I'm asking you? Like, because so is there like a devil and demon, and are there people that are connecting with ancestors or with the forces of nature?
it can be a whole host of it. Everything that you've mentioned, it can happen that way. See, some people make a pact with the devil, some people call on the devil, but you have to be very deep and very adept to actually do that. A lot of people, witches, wizards, or whatever, they are geared to the moon. They're geared to nature itself and the green man and Hern and all those, which is part of nature. Then you've got what I would call, you got black witches, you've got white witches, and then for me, you've got those that say they're in the middle, which are grey witches. And for me, there's no middle common ground. For me, you're either black or white, because if you're grey, then you must do both. For me, I think a lot of Wicca as well deal with nature. A lot of people get Wicca mixed up with other bits and bobs of all spells and stuff. But as far as I'm concerned, yes, the devil does exist, and so do demons. But for me, back then, I didn't even think about those kind of things. So for me, it just sort of like seemed to materialize on that. So it was just something that you learn as you grow when you're doing these things.
So I'm still kind of sorry, because again, I love like these details. So I'm still kind of staying in the time period before the incident with the red lipstick and the mirror, or the red marker, whatever it was. So at that time, did you try to do a money spell, and does it work?
Those money spells that I did back then, no, they never worked. Although, having said that, there was one I came across, and it was to do with Van oil, which is a thing. Excuse me.
Prove to me that you are alive.
See, Van oil is where you have kind of a bath in it. It makes you smell. It smells awful. But the strangest thing was that you just put this oil into your bath. You have a bath in it from head to foot, and then it's supposed to bring money to you. For me, it didn't bring money to me, it brought money to my sister. So in that respect, it did work, but not for me. It worked for my sister. But other money spells that I did, no, it didn't. That was the only one that did.
Okay, so let's get to that moment where I stopped you. So like you said, you're realizing that people, people around the neighborhood or whatever are also, maybe practicing something, and so you get home from work and you see this sign on the mirror. Like, was it someone physical that left that sign, or like how was your reaction, and how meaningful was this sign to you?
For me, I kind of I had a million things running through my head, and my mum's allegedly had been into my bedroom to clean it and what have you, and tidy up, and then she's the one that pointed it out. She says, "Oh, you should see what's on your mirror."
Mm.
And I went, "Right, okay." So I went up and had a look, seen this, and the, the first question that came to my head was, you know, who the hell did that?
Right.
Now, I wasn't sure whether my mum had done it, as whether she'd done it as a prank or whether she'd done that on purpose to frighten me. I don't know. But for me, I'm just kind of thinking along the lines of, well, to be fair, I know this sort of stuff can happen where you can remotely do something on
Right.
on walls or whatever. But this just kind of, because it was in red lipstick, and I had to put two and two together to see whether she'd done it. I did ask her. I said, "Did you do this?" And she went, "No." Deadpan face. She said no. So it kind of left me wondering. And for me, it was something I had to keep an eye on, because they were using the neighbours that were having a go at us knew somebody else further down the street who who was already initiated into that family of doing voodoo and stuff. So for me, it was always a question: did my mum do it, or did something else do it? And for me, I'm just kind of I'm a bit half and half, to be fair.
Mhm.
So it was just allowing myself to take that on board of what could happen.
Okay. So basically, you're saying that in your neighborhood, there was some sort of an order of maybe witches or, you know, magicians, or like, how did you figure out like that? Like, what was it? What was special about that place that, that maybe there were some witches or magicians? Like, did you figure out that there was some sort of an order like that?
Yeah, I mean, they because one of the girls was single and I was single. They were at the time they were trying to draw me in, and
Mm.
they were doing all sorts of things. They wear some kind of, not, it wouldn't be perfume that I could smell, it would be something else. And they were such adept that they were able to draw people in to see what they could do and how they could manipulate them, like they did with this young girl down the street. Um, for the people that I knew on the street and talked to, they would always tell me to keep away from this family because they were steeped in voodoo, and there was like a for me there was like a presence around the house on the outside, and
Wow.
it's just not a garden or path that I would like to walk down when I passed their home, because there was just something about it that just didn't feel right.
Mhm. So did you ever figure out if that writing with the lipstick, was it supernatural?
Um, if hand on my heart and being truthful, I would have to say it was my mum, to be fair. As much as I knew at the time that things could happen, I just found it far fetched that red lipstick on a
Right.
glass. And I'm just thinking, no, you would have to be in the same room for that to happen. So I think I'd eventually come to that conclusion that my mum had done it, to be fair.
Mhm. Okay, so now your life is, keeps going. how this is what I want to know, and this is very important, I think, part of your journey. So how are you at that time transitioning from the dark to the light? Like, was it again some sort of an experience, or was it just a natural path? You can share as many details as you like.
I think kind of early years I was delving into dark things about magic and voodoo, as I say. But there came a time where I was kind of working, doing different jobs, going from company to company every 6 months to 8 months or whatever. And I ended up at this this warehouse, and I'd spent 2 years there. And basically the job entailed sorting market traders out with clothes so they could go to market and sell the clothes that they'd bought from the warehouse I was working at. And this particular day, these two ladies come in, and one lady had or already had an operation. I think she had a hysterectomy or something like that, but she was recovering, and got her a chair and sat down. And my friend that I was working with, he went and sorted the other lady out while I was sat talking to this lady. And as I was talking to her, she was very quietly spoken, very gentle. And as we got talking, it turned out that she was a born again Christian. Now, I've just kind of thought to myself, right, okay, this is where I felt everything was going to start going. So, we spoke for about 3/4 of an hour while her things were gathered, and then she left. And it just it was a nice conversation. It was a good experience. I didn't lead anything into it. And I've just thought to myself, maybe you'll see him again. Maybe you won't. He's just like with all the people that were coming and going. So it transpired a couple of weeks later, they turned up again. So we got kind of more into it. And, I was saying, no, I don't believe in that. I says, I do this, and I believe in that. And she was telling me, you don't want to be doing that. Well, I'm just kind of, back then, being a bit of an arsehole, if you will, I just went, well, it's what I'm doing. That's what you do. This is what I'm doing. End of story kind of thing. But there was still a little part of me inside that was going, maybe there is something there. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. Just got to find out. So as the weeks and then the months turned into conversations and stuff, we ended up going out with each other and dating. So she was in one. I was in Nottingham at the time, and she was in Chesterfield. So it transpired that I ended up finishing the job eventually, and then moving up there. And again, as I got to know her, she was stuck in her ways of going to church and stuff like that. Something I'd never done. Never even entertained going to church, to be fair. I just thought, it's not for me. You have this preconceived idea what church people are like, and it's just sort of like they're all kind of sort of like stuck in their ways, and church is church, and you're not going to learn anything, this, that, and everything else. And it just transpired that rather than me feeling guilty and not going, I ended up going with her, and got to know a few people and stuff like that. So for me, looking back as far then, it was a way of you guys turning your life around very slowly and very gently. Because I think if they'd have done it in one fell swoop, I think there would have been a lot of resistance there.
Right.
So they did it in such a way, it was so very, very gentle. And it was just a case of, previously I'd done everything that I wanted to do. I'd walked over people, I'd told lies and bent truths to suit my will. at the time. And there does come a time where that line gets drawn and you are held accountable for everything you do. And sometimes it comes for people later in life, sometimes it comes earlier. If it comes earlier, then there's a reason for that. At that moment in time, I didn't know. But we continued to go to church and things like that. And I got introduced to a guy called Mick. And we kind of hit it off quite well. You know, he said, come for Bible study. And I'm thinking, there's no way I want to go Bible studying. Not on this planet do I want to go Bible studying. So I thought at the time, keep the peace. You're around people who are steeped in all this church business and stuff. So I just thought to myself, nothing ventured, nothing gained. You sort of like Bible study, and we used to talk and different things about religion and stuff like that, and so on and so forth. And it was quite illuminating, to be fair. We had, I think, 3 sessions a week. I wouldn't say that kind of it was going to make me a born again Christian without any stretch of the imagination, was it? For me, it was nice. It was nice to talk to somebody who knew what they were talking about biblically and stuff like that, which I just thought, he knows his knowledge, he knows his stuff. Great. What's good for you ain't good for me, pal. But you could feel there was a change coming. I felt there was a change coming, but I didn't know what it was until this particular day where I'd done somebody down, done some wrong. And for the first time in my life, I'd been hurt, but I didn't know how to handle it. Back then I wasn't mature enough to handle being hurt. So I couldn't understand what this feeling was. And I immediately sought this guy out who I had Bible study with. And I said to him, what do I do? I've done this, I've done that in life, but this I can't handle. What do I do?
Wow.
To what came out of his mouth. I mean, back then I could have punched him, because he didn't tell me something I wanted to hear, which kind of threw me out, because nobody had ever done that to me before.
Right.
So,
basically you're looking for comfort, but you hear something you don't want to hear. So what did he say?
He turns around and he says to me, you know what you got to do, don't you? And I says, what? He says, go and give your life to Jesus Christ. He says, give him back your life. He says, he will accept you. And I looked at him and I just thought, wow, you need a punch. And for me, I just kind of went away. It shook me to my core. I didn't get and I didn't understand why somebody would say that. Because I was expecting somebody.
You're looking for something profound, right? Like,
yeah, it's just sort of like, really, is that all you've got? So I thought, nothing ventured, nothing gained. So I went back to my flat, and I can still remember today that as I closed my door, and I was deeply upset, I got on my knees and I said the Lord's Prayer. And he said, that's all you need to do. He said, say the Lord's Prayer. He says, and ask Jesus Christ into your life. He says, and apologize for everything you've ever said or done, and he will accept you. But he says, you must, more than anything else, say it from here. He says, because if you do not say it from here, it does not work. And as soon as I'd said the Lord's Prayer, there was a presence in that room. I was frightened. I was absolutely frightened. So much so that I would not raise my head. I was on all fours and my head was down. And the flat that I was in the living room, and there was my bedroom inside. And I was into my bedroom on all fours, and I was at the side of my bed. And as I was at the side of my bed, my body got flipped, and then my arms stretched out wide like that. And then I'd confessed to everything I'd ever done, everything I'd ever said. And I felt elated.